Welcome to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers with Linda Prio. Will it be possible to remain in my home as I age? Do I feel safe in my home? How do I figure out how much support I will need when my health needs start to change? What if I decide to move into a community instead? Which community will meet my needs now and in the future? Who will play a role in helping me with decision making? Do you ask yourself these same questions? Aging in Place Strategies and Answers can help you gain practical knowledge that will help you create your own Aging in Place roadmap. If you are already a care partner, a power of attorney, or in crisis mode with your Aging in Place strategy, you will learn what you need to know that you don't know. For over 20 years, I have been marketing Aging in Place services to clients and educating families and healthcare professionals in how to put aging in place strategies into place. When you utilize aging in place, you are allowed to choose where you want to live and make those decisions so that you can retain your quality of life. Hello, listeners. This is Linda with Aging in Place Strategies and Answers. And today we are going to be talking about the Alzheimer's Association, what that organization is all about. And I have a special guest for you today that I am going to want you to meet. So please listen and learn with me today, because the tips we're going to be offering are going to be valuable to you as you go through your dementia journey, either as a care partner or someone with Alzheimer's disease. The Alzheimer's Association is a national advocacy organization that focuses on helping those with Alzheimer's dementia. Their fundraising efforts supports research efforts and about 1,100 dementia projects in 56 countries across 6 continents. This great organization helps raise public awareness and offers education and advocacy for care partners, the medical community, as well as state and national governing bodies. If you are caring for someone with Alzheimer's dementia, know someone with dementia, or have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, now is the time to connect with your local chapter, because the Alzheimer's Association offers a 24-hour hotline service that can get you connected with resources you will need for this journey. No one should do dementia alone. And when you have a wonderful organization at your fingertips, why should you? My listeners know that I work for a company that is supporting those with dementia by offering one-on-one respite care at home. We also offer an adult day program that offers daytime assistance as well as respite for their care partners, and small memory care homes with 12 to 13 residents in a home-like setting. My guest today is Amy Wheeler, and her aunt and uncle used all 3 of these services to help in their journey to keep their beloved husband and uncle at home as long as possible. Amy has a lot to share with us today, so let's get started. Amy, please say hello to my listeners, and then can you please share how your Uncle Warren's journey started and proceeded when he was diagnosed with dementia?
Hi, Linda. Thank you so much for having me. As she mentioned, my name is Amy Wheeler, and I am a volunteer with the Alzheimer's Association. My Uncle Warren was diagnosed with dementia, which then turned into Alzheimer's probably around 2011, 2012. Linda, my aunt, kind of noticed it when they were at home one day getting ready for dinner. Linda asked Warren to grab some dishes and set the table. And Warren just kind of stood there and looked at her and had no idea what was going on and said, "Well, where are the dishes?" So Linda got a little concerned at that point and kind of started noticing things more and more. Eventually, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and we do attribute that to his time in the NFL with repeated head injuries.
Yes, it is well known that Warren Powers is a famous person who coached at Mizzou and led the football program there to successive victories, was very successful in that program, and also played professionally.
He did. He played professional football for the then Oakland Raiders, now Las Vegas Raiders, and happened to be in Super Bowl II. Actually was taken out of the Super Bowl with a concussion.
Yes, and he was out for a period of time, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yes, and so in talking with this family and knowing this family and working with this family, this is where we feel that it did begin, but it did evolve into full-blown Alzheimer's dementia. But Linda and Warren are the dream team, and there's nothing Aunt Linda wouldn't do for her husband, Warren, nor he for her. And Linda connected with the NFL to see what benefits they had for Warren there, but also connected with me at Continuum to see how we might be able to help Warren when she might need some care. There was no way Aunt Linda was going to place Warren ever. So it was a long time from that initial conversation to the time that we actually began services at home for Linda and to help her with Warren. But how did your aunt get involved in the Alzheimer's Association and in fundraising efforts?
Yes. Well, as you mentioned, she was a champion for Warren as he was for her. And she reached out to the association just looking for tips and care groups to support her and to support Warren. She had a mission. She was going to take care of Warren. She was going to let people know about this disease. I think a lot of her coming out publicly with Warren was that he was such a well-known name, especially in the Missouri area, St. Louis, with Mizzou football. I think there's a huge stigma still against Alzheimer's and dementia, and she thought using Warren's name and getting that out there would let people know, like, hey, this happens to everyone. It doesn't matter if you were in the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter if you are one of the most winningest coaches at Mizzou. This can happen to anyone. And I'm here to let people know that and let you know what I'm going through.
Absolutely. And Amy's absolutely right. There is a stigma attached for no reason. We don't attach stigmas for other diseases.
Right. Yeah. You don't, do anything with cancer or diabetes. It's just for some reason losing your memory, I think, is hard for people. And it's a disease just like any other.
It is hard for people. And so she began to get involved in the Alzheimer's Association. And I do think that her the awareness she brought, the tender way that she would share this information and her passion. If you knew Aunt Linda, it was there. It didn't take much to see. And I bet if you do a Google search,
there are a lot of videos out there.
Linda and Warren Powers,
yeah.
You will find out what
absolutely
we are talking about.
Let's hear a word from one of our sponsors.
Do you want assisted living services but don't want to leave your home? Call Continuum at 314-863-9912. Our professional team has 20-plus years of experience and will help you create the perfect care solution that meets your current and future needs. Continuum supports independence at every stage of life. Call 314-863-9912 for a free consultation or visit us at continuumcare.com.
Let's return to the podcast.
So Amy and I connected at a family gathering, and I mentioned to Amy, oh, by the way, I started a podcast, and we started chatting, and she said, well, Linda, I'm going to go to an advocacy event in Washington, D.C., and so I told her, I said, I haven't even started in my podcast talking about dementia yet, because I know that once I turn that page in the book, I'm going to be talking about this for a while, but I want you to come on my podcast and share what that experience was like going to Washington, D.C. and what you learned while you were there. But before I have you share that, have you had any training in this role, or do you have any educational experience?
I do not. I do not have a political science degree. I do not have any training in public policy. All you need to be an advocate is a passion for what you're going to talk about.
So I wanted her to tell you that first, because sometimes, whether we like it or not, we find ourselves in places where we find a passion and our experience leads us in a certain direction. And I know that because that's why I started the podcast, is because I knew that people needed to know what they didn't know, and how else would they learn this information. So you went to Washington, D.C. Did you go with other people from the association?
I did. Actually, there are advocates from every state, all 50 states, that join in one area. Each state usually takes probably, I would say, maybe anywhere from about 6 to 15 people. And that's because different people will meet with their state representatives from their area. So in my case, I was meeting with people from the West County area, Baldwin, Wildwood, and so on. You also do have a chance to meet with senators, usually their legislative aides. But yeah, it's just a great time for everyone to get together from all 50 states and all go in with the same cause and purpose, and to let these government officials know how important this is to us and to their constituents.
And were you received in a friendly way? Open doors?
Yes, absolutely. It's really an eye-opening experience to see how the government works. Government officials have so many things that they do every day. They're constantly looking at different bills and different requests for funding from different areas. So it's great to be able to get in front of them and let them know why this is important to you. Mm-hmm. One of the main points that the advocacy team for the association tries to get across during our training is you do not need to be an expert on these bills. You don't need to be an expert on public policy. You need to be an expert on your story. Why, they call it your why story. Why do you do this? Obviously, in my case, it's because of my Aunt Linda and my Uncle Warren. So many times when you tell your story, it's hard to find someone that doesn't have a connection. Even the people in the government that you're meeting with, they'll hear your story and say, well, my grandmother had this. And it's just really nice to be able to connect with them more on a personal level. We have papers that explain the bills and the things that we're asking for. It's just to get in front of them and connect with them on a personal level.
Well, and I did an internship when I was in college at the House of Representatives. And so many times I would be the one who would have to be doing research on specific things. So you're right. These representatives have so much that they have to know. So having somebody that comes in from a personal level that can tell their story and make that connection, that sort of that heartfelt connection, can really make a difference in the way they might perceive something. So what were the things were you talking about particular bills while you were there, or trying to draw attention to particular ones?
I think one of the ones that's most important that we talked about is called the AADAPT Act, and that is Accelerating Access to Dementia and Alzheimer's Provider Training. So many times when people start to have concerns about dementia or Alzheimer's, they seek out knowledge from their primary care provider. A lot of times those primary care providers don't have all the full information to be able to make a diagnosis to do this. So this program, part of the ADAPT Act, would give a virtual program that primary care doctors can go through. And we were asking for funding to get that pushed through. So when people reach out to their primaries, they have the knowledge that they need to be able to help them with their diagnosis and start them on their journey.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much. Was there anything else you wanted to share from that experience? Your takeaway from that experience?
It is really cool to walk around Capitol Hill and wear your purple, and people kind of look at you, and you have your banners that say, AIM Advocacy. And it's just a really neat feeling to be able to walk into these government buildings and be able to meet with these high-level people and share your story and why you're passionate about this and why they need to support the bills that are going through the House.
In 2024.
Yes.
It's still possible to get before your elected official.
Absolutely.
Well, in your mind, Amy, how important is advocacy to raise public awareness as well as to provide education. You said, I think anybody could become an advocate. Is that true? But it is important, isn't it?
It is important. Yes, anyone can be an advocate. All you need to do is connect with your local chapter. The best way to start out is we call it Memory Day. And here in Missouri, we travel to Jefferson City, meet with our state representatives. And it's just important because advocacy lets the officials know how important it is to their constituents that these people are out here and we have a voice for people. So dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia is difficult, and it's rewarding to know that you can have the opportunity to get in front of these officials on a state and federal level and let them know that there are ways that they can help their fellow Americans.
And I know your Aunt Linda would be very proud of you and what you're doing.
Thank you. They did do advocacy work as well. They never traveled to Washington, D.C. I think by the time they got into advocacy, it was a little difficult for Warren to go that far. But they have been to Jefferson City. I have a great picture of them and a great picture of me from this last year standing in the same spot. And it's really cool to follow in their footsteps.
Well, your mom was your aunt, well, actually your mother and your aunt were huge bridge players, like my mother.
Yes.
And it's funny how those connections work. But anyway, my mom actually knew Aunt Linda and your own.
She was a big name in the bridge community.
Absolutely. How did she rally support from them, from the St. Louis Bridge?
Yeah. So the Longest Day is a fundraising initiative that the Alzheimer's Association does. And the American Contact Bridge League is one of their national sponsors. So she took that to the St. Louis Bridge Center, where she played every week, and started a Longest Day tournament. And the Longest Day, for people that don't know, is June 21st. And the tagline is, "The day with the most light is the day that we fight." So she would put together these bridge tournaments and just bring people in, have silent auctions, do fundraisers, raffles, all kinds of things. I think her highest total raised in 1 year was close to $90,000.
Which is huge. And I bring that up because maybe you don't feel empowered to be an advocate in Washington, D.C., but we all have a way that we can get involved in fundraising and awareness and education and advocacy. And I know that Continuum and our Family of Services sponsors many, many folks that are involved in working with people who have dementia, because we know that this is not easy. It will take everything you have. And we are not going, you are not better if you do it alone. You are better when you seek help. And I think that's really where Linda just came into the forefront and said, hey, I've got this going on in my life. I'm a real person. We're real people. This is affecting us. And so it was wonderful that you're continuing this awareness effort. But you don't want to stop there. You have another idea in mind of what you want to do. So what might be your next role?
We're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor. Let's return to the podcast.
I do a lot with the Alzheimer's Association. As I mentioned, I am part of the Longest Day now. I've taken on her Bridge Center fundraising initiative. I do the Walk to End Alzheimer's. Of course, I do advocacy, and I'm trying to get into awareness presentations now, going through some training just to be able to go into local places, maybe a church group or a knitting group, or even at the Bridge Center, just to give a little talk and let people know about the Alzheimer's Association and let them know that there are people here to help them. And as you've mentioned many times, you do not have to go through this alone.
Yes. And so we also have had folks from the Alzheimer's Association talking to family members and doing presentations to help them to know how to be successful when behaviors start to change as someone's dementia progresses. And that was very helpful to the folks that were participating in that. So if you have a group and you need a speaker, then contact again your local organization. So getting involved is a great way to help push awareness and fundraising and resources. And if you don't know where your local chapter is, then you can go to www.alz.org or Google in your town for the local chapter and pick up the phone. Otherwise, you can call 1-800-272-3900, and I will have that in the show notes as well. Amy, I am a huge caregiver advocate. You know that I took care of my mother in my home, and I know what it's like to be in that role. And I know that you came alongside your Aunt Linda to help with Warren. And so from your experience, what lessons did you learn as a caregiver, and what would you like to share with my listeners today?
Well, as much as I wanted to help with Warren, I can't take the title of a caregiver. I was only there a little bit, and caregivers, man, that is a hard job.
It is a hard job.
And even after just a few days after she was diagnosed with her brain cancer and helping Warren, I was just in awe of how she was able to do that in her home for so long. And I think my caregiver tip, just from watching my Aunt Linda, is to remember to take care of yourself. And remember to call your local chapter and get involved. There are support groups for caregivers, people that are going through the exact same thing that you are. You don't have to do this alone.
And I will say this is a great time in dementia awareness, because I nominated somebody today for a respite grant. And the Alzheimer's Association has those funds that they can refer you to. In our state, there's also a caregiver grant that's available. And so it's not only just support, it could be financial support. But Amy's absolutely right, is you've got to take care of yourself. And of course, as a caregiver, we're the ones who let other people's needs come in front of our own. But in order to do this for the long haul, you really have to take care of yourself. So thank you so much for being with me today, Amy. I greatly appreciate it. And I know our listeners are going to get so much out of it. And I hope that we've empowered them to take the next step if you have your own why story. Listen again to Aging in Place, Strategies and Answers. Thank you for joining me today. Please remember that this podcast is intended as guidance and not advice. Share this podcast with friends and family who are currently in crisis mode, or with people who would like to start developing their own roadmap for aging in place. Listeners, if you would like a deeper dive into a topic discussed during a podcast, please subscribe to Aging in Place, Strategies and Answers, where you will be able to access premium content. Or if you would like to suggest a topic for this podcast, please contact me at linda.agingstrategies@gmail.com. As always, I value the time you spend with me.